Welcome back to the Manufacturing Alliance podcast, everybody. As always, I'm your host, Tony DeMakis with Alliance Specialties and Laser Sales, where we do all things that are mold repair, mold maintenance. So that would mean your polishing, your laser welding, your laser engraving, hot runner manifold repair, what did I miss? And preventative maintenance, preventative mold maintenance. We like to consider ourselves to be the mold makers that don't build molds. And it doesn't make any sense to say it that way, but it's what we do. We have created a hub to help you with whatever issues that you have. We also have a line of laser welding and laser engraving equipment that is made here in the United States. So I know that's important for a lot of people that are watching. They want to support American-made products, and we have those. What's nice is we are doing all of the services that you're looking to have help when you buy a laser welding and engraving machine. And that's why you can trust us, because we're doing the same work that you want to do. We know how to do it. That's why we built the equipment, and that's why we want to help you do it. And if you're interested in having us work on one of your projects, you can contact us at alliancelasersales.com, or you can send me a message at tony@alliancelasersales.com. And if you'd like a machine demo, let us know. We'll come out to your facility. We'll set that up for you and show you how it all works. Another thing we have coming up is we have our golf outing on September 24th. It is the day after Amerimold. We're not going to talk about Amerimold too much because it's in competition with our guest because of different, media publications. But the golf outing is going to be awesome. We're striving to have over 200 participants. It's going to be an awesome networking day of golf and fun and games, and most importantly, making a difference in the lives of people in the community. And this year, we are proud to support iWarriors as our charity of choice. So we will be taking all the funds that we raise and purchasing iPads for combat wounded veterans, so that they can work on recovery from PTSD. They have special apps that they put on there, and also be able to communicate with their loved ones when they're in the hospital and doing whatever they need to do. As always, we want this to be a show for the people watching, and we want to answer the questions that you have that you've been wondering about. We can't predict that. So that's why we do this show live, so you can put it in the chat, whether that's on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, wherever you're watching. If you put those comments in the chat, whether it's a question, a comment, thought, whatever it is, we'll be sure to ask those questions. And we have prizes for the best questions and the best comments. So we'd love to hear what you have to say about the show. And that's about all I have for an introduction. I'm excited for today because it's always great when we get to have more industry insiders on and people that know what's going on, specifically in plastics. And today we've got Frank Esposito on from Plastics News. It's a Crane Media company. And I'm going to bring Frank in and we can start this conversation. Frank, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing okay, Tony. How are you?
I'm great. Welcome to our show. You're a guy that I think I see around quite a bit. You're pretty big on social media. You're always posting articles and talking about what's happening in the world of plastics. And, it's appreciated by myself and I'm sure people that are listening because, we don't always know what's going on. So it's good to have someone like you that does. So Frank, if you want to tell people a little bit about yourself real quick and we can jump into some other stuff.
Sure. No problem. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. I've been at Plastics News since 1997. I've covered materials for the publication. That includes compounds, distribution. Also cover mergers and acquisitions quite a bit. That's a topic that's of great interest to our readers. I also do our resin pricing chart, which is in the back of every issue of Plastics News, also online. Like to say when I started covering resin pricing, I had a full head of hair and perfect eyesight. This is the result of 20 plus years of doing that. Plastics News is a weekly publication that covers the global plastics market with an emphasis on North America. We've got about 45,000 readers in print every week, about 140,000 unique visitors to the website every month. So that's kind of what we do. This year obviously has been a challenging one for resin markets. That's affected a lot of injection molders, a lot of blow molders, film extruders, et cetera. So we do the best we can to supply the market with the information that it needs to make decisions and to improve their businesses.
Yeah, I think it's great. Like I've been to the Plastics News Executive Forum a couple years.
Hmm.
That's always a good time. And I think what I like most about Plastics News is one, it's weekly, so it's incredibly relevant, and it's heavy on social media, LinkedIn, and you can get that information quickly. And I think what I appreciate most is that you don't. To me, it doesn't seem like you categorize it as suppliers, vendors, plastics, mold makers. It's all of us in this bubble together, this plastics
Hmm.
manufacturing bubble together. And how do we navigate that as one entity, as one team in a global market?
Right. We take a broad focus and a broad approach to the industry. Really, I think, and you find this more as you go further on, so many areas are interconnected to each other. The resin side affects the molding side, affects the tooling side. Distribution is a big part of that process, and even the financial process with M&A. I mean, there are so many companies being bought and sold in the plastics market every year. That's something that's big for a lot of people. Uh, to keep track of. And you can be a competitor in one area, and you can be a partner or a supplier in another area. It's a challenge to focus on the complexity of it, but that's the goal that we set for ourselves every week.
Yeah, I think mergers and acquisitions for like the last couple of years has been pretty crazy around the plastics industry. I mean, have you seen that spike, and has it slowed down a little bit, or do you see it picking up even more?
Well, there was a slowdown last year in that area because of COVID, especially in the first half. The second half really picked up, and it got kind of back to 2019 levels. Plastics companies, packaging companies are attractive to a lot of private equity companies because of the diversity of the markets that they cover, because of the profits that they produce. And there's still a lot of smaller companies out there, whether you're talking about companies that make containers, companies that make food packaging, other types of packaging, distribution companies, compounding. I mean, if you look at the history of the plastics industry, a lot of these were smaller family companies that were started with a regional emphasis. Some of them have grown to become very large companies, and when that happens, they get they draw the attention of larger financial companies, private equity companies. They buy 4 or 5 of these companies, put them together, get economies of scale, grow in that way. And in spite of a lot of the consolidation that's happened over the last several years, there are still a lot of those companies out there that are being sought out for combinations. And also, right now, there are very high multiples being paid for companies. If you look at earnings multiples, and as the competition increases, there's more buyers looking for fewer sellers, and that's driving up the prices even more. And that kind of feeds into it. It becomes sort of a circular thing. But yes, mergers and acquisitions. There are a lot of companies that just focus on plastics and packaging, or they have a specialty in that area to focus on plastics and packaging companies that could be the targets of acquisitions.
Yeah, I know in the past year and a half, I would say we've had people message us and ask us if we had any interest, if we wanted to talk. And right now, to be honest, we don't. We're happy where we are. We're a nice, small, family-owned business. We like the autonomy and the ability to do the things that we think are the right things to do. We don't want to give that up.
Yeah.
There's no reason for us to look at that kind of expansion. Maybe down the line, but right now, we're good.
Well, right there are companies that call up companies such as yours to sort of sound you out, sort of kick the tires, that sort of thing. And there's companies like that in all sort of different branches of the industry. Compounding, distribution, injection molding. Some of them have specialties. And if you look at some of the history of some of these big financial companies, I mean, some of them have assembled and sold companies several times over. Businesses like Graham or WinPoint or bigger companies like that. It's an entire business model and strategy that they have.
I remember, I think it was the 18 Plastics News Executive Forum. Westfall was one of the companies that was speaking.
Yes.
And they went through their whole presentation and at the end, it was like, we're still buying people. So if you have any interest, find me and let's talk. And it was like, holy cow, that's that's just throwing it out there. That's just like,
Oh yeah.
they're not hiding anything about it.
Westfall was really targeting injection molders. They made, I believe, more than 15 deals over a relatively short period of time, and that's been a successful example of the roll-up approach, combining smaller companies to get the economies of scale and to do things that maybe those companies would not have done on their own. So that's been a very successful example of it. Yeah, the executive forum's been a wonderful event. Unfortunately, this year with COVID, it was held online. Next year, we hope to have everybody there in person.
Awesome. Is it going to be back in Orlando or Florida area? It's not Orlando.
I believe it's going to be in Naples again.
Awesome. Yeah, it's always great. I mean, I love it. You usually have like the booze cruise kind of thing, which is nice, and just the networking and just it's a good time. I mean, I don't regret any of the times that we've been out there, and it's been twice. And it's good. I like that you do the Rising Stars the same weekend, and the best places to work, which we had an honor of being named in twice. No Rising Stars yet, but we just got to hire younger people, I think.
Well, then, of course, the entire event culminates in our Processor of the Year event, where we recognize the most accomplished company in the industry for that year. It's a very exhaustive process we go through for that, and that's a big honor for companies to receive. Rising Stars, that's something we have received a lot of interest in that, but more applicants every year. The same for our Best Places to Work event. So I think both of those events have been good ways to give recognition to people in the industry that really deserve it, and it's a good way to bring people together.
Well, I love the Rising Stars so much because it can be difficult to get the younger demographic involved in business and show their initiative and what they can actually accomplish. I think that Rising Star is just the easiest gateway to get people recognized and noticed and awarded for being really awesome at what they're doing in their business.
Oh, right. I think for better or worse, plastics being more of an established industry now, it seems like a lot of middle-aged or older people, and so I think it's important for younger people to see that there are opportunities for them in the plastics industry. I think it's an area that maybe has been overlooked, but if people show initiative and work hard, it's still an area that people can really make an impact.
Yeah, I agree. And again, my favorite thing is some people might see us and say, "Oh, you're just a supplier. You don't qualify for this award." But when it came to Best Places to Work, Plastics News is a little bit different than some of the other publications where they say, listen, you are part of our industry. And if you're a best place to work in the industry, there's no reason you shouldn't be recognized. Absolutely.
We have a lot of compounders and resin distribution companies that have won that over the years. People like M. Holland, Chase Plastics, Techmer PM. Those are companies that have landed on our Best Places to Work list fairly often.
Yeah. And I know you also specialize in the resins and materials. What is going on? When are we going to get over this hump? I mean, what do you see happening here?
This is a part of the industry where I feel like I'm sort of an amateur psychiatrist for a lot of the resin buyers out there, because it's just been unprecedented. I mean, it started early last year when the COVID outbreak hit. People weren't sure how that was going to affect demand and production because nobody had ever lived through this before. Demand went down tremendously for a month or two, but then it came roaring back. But at the same time, there were some resin companies that had curtailed production because they weren't sure what to do. They didn't want to make millions of pounds of resin that was just going to sit there unsold. So that came back. Then you get to August and October, hurricane season. There were 2 bad hurricanes on the Gulf Coast that affected production. We were still recovering from that. And in February, you had that unprecedented ice storm in the Texas and the Gulf Coast area, where a lot of North American resin production is located. And that just knocked out. I mean, somebody estimated there was at least 2 weeks solid of resin production that was out. I think polypropylene got down to something like 12%.
Wow.
Rates, which is just absurd. And, one of the resin distribution executives made the comment, I mean, when you're a resin company and you lose that, you can't add an extra shift or, work harder on weekends to make up for it. I mean, when 2 billion pounds of resin is gone, it's gone.
Right.
And orders kept coming in. I mean, with COVID, we all sort of, changed our lifestyles and buying habits. Now with things loosening up, it remains to be seen if that's going to change. But for the last year, I mean, there was a lot more takeout food, a lot more shopping from home, a lot more, medical supplies that were needed at hospitals and that sort of thing. As things open up, or are we going to, go back to the way things previously were? I mean, that's something that we can't answer right now. I do think this summer, just from things that we're seeing, I think this is going to be kind of a really strong summer for consumer demand. I think people are going to be going to more concerts, outdoor events, anything, amusement parks, traveling more. And I think that's going to increase demand for a lot of consumer products through August at least.
I've seen that. I mean, I think people are itching so badly to get out and right. Just not even, I hate the word normal, because normal is just kind of whatever we're living in. It's a new normal. It's an old normal. It's whatever it is. I think people just miss being out and doing things and getting back to it. Last year when we had our golf outing, we didn't know what to expect. We didn't know if we should even have it. And we actually waited till almost the month before to start actually planning it and putting it out there. And we sold out. And we had people coming from across the country to come to the outing because it was the only thing that was happening. It was the only networking thing that was available. And because it was outside, it was fine. And knock on wood, thank God we didn't have any issues.
Yeah.
But people were craving that attention. And the buzz that I kept hearing from everybody was, we need shows back. We need a reason to get together. We need something, whether it's, a group of people renting out hotel rooms or a park or whatever. Let's get people together and meet face to face and do these things.
Right. But I think the really important thing now, especially these last few months, is that with the vaccination rates rising and improving, I think people feel more safe and more confident about doing that sort of thing. Obviously, the last year, there's been a lot of trade shows and conferences that were canceled out of necessity, and then now hopefully there will be more of a green light for those sort of things if they can be done safely. But I do think from talking to people, just the increased rate of vaccinations has helped. It's made people feel more confident about going out and doing things. Maybe we'll see more offices reopening, that sort of thing. But the other thing too that's another one of those, how fast do we move on from COVID sort of things. A lot of people that I know, resin people, compounding people, that they've been accomplishing the same results or better results by not going into an office as much. So when it comes back, I mean, what's going to happen now? Again, I mentioned to you earlier, I've been already working from home for several years, so COVID really wasn't much of a change to me. But I think for some people, they found out that they've done it and liked it. Their employers have found out, hey, this is improving, work-life balance for a lot of people. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Also, business travel. I mean, I don't know if you're hearing this from your customers. I mean, maybe if there's a customer you had seen 3 or 4 times a year, maybe you only see them once or twice, and you can accomplish the same thing. Which, again, that's a decision every company's going to have to make. If that happens, what does that mean for airlines, hotels, restaurants? I mean, it could be a big impact. I mean, I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's just a transition that the industry might be looking at.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a combination of both. I think what I could see happening is a lot of travel all at once, because people want to get back and finally shake hands again with, whoever it is, and meet face to face. And then it'll equalize, and you'll have a little bit of Zoom, Teams, whatever you want to call it, and also some more of the in-person stuff that's going to, I don't think you can ever replace that.
Right. From talking to the resin materials people that we talk with, a lot of times it's easier to keep an established relationship like that. If it's somebody that you've known for 10 years, you've been selling to, maybe you still want to see them, maybe not as much, but to start new relationships or open new accounts, you really need to have that face-to-face type of thing. I know, especially earlier in my career, I traveled as much as I possibly could to get in front of people and to meet them and learn about the industry. And in some cases, even if I haven't visited them, and in a few years, just the fact that I've been at their plants, I've been in their offices talking to them and writing about what they've done. That kind of thing has value, and that holds up over time, I think. But the other side of this is higher prices, and that's the unfortunate side that we've seen in the resin world. Just kind of an unprecedented streak of higher prices for most of the commodities, the polyethylene, polypropylene, PVC. That we cover, and it's just the demand was down because of the production issues that I mentioned. Supply was down because of the production issues, right. And then demand remained high, especially in construction. I mean, that's something that maybe doesn't get seen as much, but the PVC demand for housing is way up. I mean, whether it's for vinyl siding, for pipe that's needed in houses. That's way up. I mean, I was talking to somebody that said there was a 3-month wait to get vinyl siding on a house.
Wow.
Yeah. Not to mention lumber prices, which are also up tremendously.
Yeah. Like the plastic I get because there was manufacturing issues. Lumber, I don't understand. I don't understand a lot of it.
Lumber, I'm not really sure of. I know that as far as housing, I mean, even for the existing houses, I mean, the demand is really high. I live in the Cleveland, Ohio area, and houses here are selling within a week or two or less if they go for sale. The one story that I've heard there is that millennials who had held off on buying homes are now taking that step. So we'll see if that happens. But the challenge with higher resin prices always is with the ability of the molders or the extruders to pass those prices on to their customers. And that's the thing. Difficult, and these are unprecedented. I mean, polyethylene prices are up more than 50 cents in the last year. I mean, these numbers just don't even make any sense anymore. Now, again, could this be temporary? Could we see prices going back down by the end of the year? Possibly, but I doubt you're going to give back all of that at some point in time. Also, that there's been new capacity coming on, but it hasn't been the same amounts that it was earlier. And all of this, polyethylene capacity is tied into the availability of shale gas and shale oil, which is something that was really new for North America, and that's allowed expansion to happen not far from where I live. Shell is building a massive polyethylene complex in Pittsburgh, outside of Pittsburgh, and that is something similar to like a Martian landing in the yard across the street from your house kind of thing, if you can just imagine. I mean, building a massive petrochemicals complex, including polyethylene in Western Pennsylvania. It's just, I was at that site probably late 2019, and it just, it's so unreal. It looks Photoshopped.
Really?
It's this massive petrochemicals complex with all the towers and the piping and everything on the banks of the Ohio River in Western Pennsylvania. It's kind of that you see in Texas and Louisiana all the time on their Gulf Coast area, but this is in Western Pennsylvania. So, and that the goal there for Shell is to sell a lot of that into the domestic market, and they're supposed to come online next year with that. That could create a lot of big opportunities for processors in the Midwest area. So we'll have to see what happens with that.
Does it sound okay? It sounded like there was echoey or something for a little bit there, but I hear you fine, Frank. That's all that matters.
Oh, okay.
So people can hear you. It's more me. So with the plants being open, is any of the U.S. not having their own oil, does that affect anything?
Well, as far as shale, or as far as
yeah, when we're closing down the pipeline or whatever that looks like, does that help?
Well, shale gas and shale oil have been a huge advantage for the industry over the last 10 years. I mean, I remember going to conferences 10 or 12 years ago, and they were saying if you were a North American plastics processor, you better figure out what Middle Eastern company you're going to be buying your resin from, because nobody ever expected a new polyethylene unit to be built in the U.S. ever again. Same for polypropylene. Then suddenly with shale, the combination of fracking and horizontal drilling opened up a lot of that, and suddenly you had all of this affordably priced feedstock literally right beneath our feet. And as a result, that there's been a lot of new polyethylene capacity added in the last several years. Polypropylene, not so much. The natural gas thing doesn't supply as much propylene as it does ethylene for various reasons. But there's been some polypropylene added as you get PDH units that make propylene on purpose. Ethylene's obviously a component of PVC that's allowed for some PVC debottleneckings to occur. But the real growth has been in polyethylene. And there too, a lot of it has been exported. We went from exporting about 20% of the polyethylene we make to exporting 40%.
Okay.
And that's a huge thing. And that's also been challenged in the last year with COVID. There have been issues with shipping containers available. Also, as prices have gone up in the U.S. for polyethylene, that's made it less competitive versus material that's made in Asia, the Middle East, that sort of thing. But the market the main market dynamics are still there, and this could be worked out later this year, early next year, unless we have more events-based thing. That's the thing that I think might be reassuring. Now, I know that's not reassuring if you're the injection molder paying 55 cents more a pound for polyethylene than you were and trying to explain to your boss why that's happening. But I think really what's happened there is these are all events based. You have COVID as the one event, you had the hurricanes as the other event, and then you had the ice storm as the third event. Those are three major events. In hurricane season, I mean, companies, you have to deal with that, off and on. I mean, that's an annual thing, obviously. But COVID, God willing, we won't have any type of a repeat of that in our lifetimes. And also the ice storm for Texas. I mean, that's again, that had never been seen. Now, is that something they might see more with global warming? I hope not. I don't think so. I mean, if you've been to Houston, I mean, if it gets to like 60 degrees in Houston, those folks are putting on, jackets and sweaters and things. And it got down to, I just can't imagine what 2 degrees was like in Houston. But that's had a big impact on the industry. And again, hopefully that's something we do not have a repeat of.
Yeah, I know people in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, when, they say you get a little bit of frost on the ground, it shuts down the entire city.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You're in Ohio, yeah. like Illinois, where, you get 40 below and, 6, 7, 8, 10 inches of snow, and we still go to work, and they got a dusting. So when it completely freezes, that's crazy.
Oh yeah. North Carolina, you see pictures like the cars spinning out if they get a dusting, which, is kind of funny to me because it seems like, half of the population of North Carolina comes from Ohio or Illinois or other places. So you would think that they would remember that from their early years, but apparently people forget when they move down south.
Well, you know how that is. Even in Ohio or Illinois, that first snow, or even when it rains, everybody forgets how to drive. They don't remember again till like December, and then they're going 100 down the street.
Oh my God, I can't believe it's happening again. I mean, yeah, it happened last year and the year before that, but still, I thought we were done. Yeah, it's
exactly.
Human nature, I guess.
Exactly. What are you hearing as far as sustainability? What is that? What's going on with plastics news in regards to sustainability?
Sustainability is a big topic that a lot of our readers are interested in, and a lot of the supplier companies to our readership is also interested in. Availability is an issue. I mean, when you say sustainability, I mean, that can take a number of shapes. It can take increased use of recycled materials, increased use of bioplastics. It can be people finding ways to run their plants more efficiently by using less energy. I think that the challenge right now is that if you look at all of the commitments that companies have made to using recycled materials, the amount of those commitments currently exceeds the amount of materials that are really available, because our recycling infrastructure is not really as developed as it should be. That's happening. Bioplastics, there's been some increases in use there. The challenge though too, and again, this has changed a little bit with prices being higher. A lot of times, whether it's recycled resins, bioplastic, these materials unfortunately are sold at a premium to virgin materials. So that's been a challenge. Do you want to pay more? Then you have to pay more for your end products. Are things going to balance out at the end? But it's amazing just the interest this is getting. We saw last week ExxonMobil had an environmentally focused investor get a couple of seats on their board. You've had issues with Shell's ownership over in Europe as far as having them reduce their carbon output, that sort of thing. And I think it's people are being asked questions about from their customers. But the question comes down to if you have the basic product made with standard plastics, and you've got one that's made with recycled material or biomaterials for 10% more, are people going to pay more for it? In some cases they will. In some cases they might think twice. I think people are just trying to figure out what approach that's going to take. And recycling, whether that's mechanical recycling, chemical recycling, that's one way for that to happen. Obviously, with mechanical recycling, you end up with pellets that can be remolded, reshaped into different products. Chemical recycling is where the materials are breaking down into their base chemical levels, and then that's used to make new plastics or other specialty chemicals. So those are the two shapes that it usually takes. And I think companies want to do it. It's just the way they could do it in the most economical way and the best way they can do without causing major changes to their ongoing production methods.
Yeah, I think most companies that I know of, most people that I know of, they want to do things more sustainably. They want to help the environment. Nobody is saying, kill the sea turtles. Nobody wants that. But I mean,
yeah, really. I don't see much support for a Kill the Sea Turtles campaign. That one really didn't get the traction.
No, it didn't. It didn't. But yeah. I think what you say is absolutely true. I think that cost has to be passed on somewhere. And, businesses are in business to make as much money as possible and not to be, greedy and, hold people down. But that's what business is for. And, I think the profit margins aren't through the roof in most cases. And so for the business or the person that's producing these products to take on all that cost, and the consumer say, listen, we don't want to spend any more money. We just want it to be more sustainable. I don't think that's fair for anybody. I think it's got to be cyclical. I mean, I think manufacturers and the people that are putting out products would love to use recycled material and do more to help the environment, but they have to know that it's going to be welcomed and received. And when Amazon is selling products through the roof for cheaper products made in countries and places that may not be putting that much effort into it, what are you going to do? I mean, the dollar
This
speaks.
Also could be a generational change, though, too. I mean, if you have younger consumers asking for recycled content products or asking for carbon neutral products, I mean, companies are going to have to supply them. I mean, right. I that's what it's coming down to. I mean, behaviors can change over time. I mean, most restaurants have vegetarian options on their menus now. I mean, it seems like 10, 15, 20 years ago, you didn't see that.
Right.
So it could be changing. The big behavior change that I always think about in our lifetimes is just the reduction in how many people smoke cigarettes. I mean, I think back to my childhood, and it seemed like more than half of the adults that I knew smoked. And now it's like, now if you're in a public place and you smell cigarette smoke, like you notice it, like you look around and say, like, who's smoking? So that's a major change. And if when you and I were in grade school or junior high, we would have told those adults, oh yeah,
exactly.
20, 30 years from now, none of you will be smoking. We'll still, oh, come on, but that was a change. So who knows, maybe the approach to recycling into use of sustainable products could change as well.
I remember when we were at the executive forum, there was a woman talking about going more towards cardboard and not as much plastic. I don't remember her name. And it made me kind of giggle, because I'm not that old, but I'm old enough to remember when grocery stores went from, is plastic okay because we're trying to save the paper bags, and we don't want to cut down any more trees, to now, is paper okay because we don't want to use plastic? And it's just like, is it another 10 years before we go back to, we don't want to kill the trees, so we're gonna go all plastic again? Or, I mean, what's the...
Well, then you get into environmental issues about the overall carbon footprint. Obviously, as a plastics guy, I need to point out that, paper bags, not only do you have the tree issue, you have all of the water and the chemicals and things that need to grow the tree. So actually, the environmental footprint of a paper bag is larger than a plastic bag, but unfortunately, that message gets lost a lot of the time at the consumer level. And I think that's where the industry really could improve its messaging. I mean, I think they're trying, but I think it doesn't always work. Again, just for the fact that you're being offered a paper bag as a more environmentally friendly option, right, versus plastic shows that.
So as people in the industry that have a voice, right? That's kind of what we are. How do we help tell that story? What do we need to do in order to get the consumer to understand what we're actually trying to do and what they can do to help be a part of that?
I think we need to emphasize just the availability of recycling, and I think you and I as individuals can do that. Unfortunately, a lot of areas of the country, recycling is not as available as it should be. But I mean, I think we have to make that effort to get as much as we can into our local recycling streams. Also, I mean, I think it's important to emphasize the positive aspects of plastics. I mean, for years, I've thought about food packaging. I mean, before we had, plastics wrap on a lot of these materials, I mean, just the amount of food that was spoiled or damaged that was wasted. And I mean, hunger, unfortunately, is still an issue in a lot of communities. And I think, plastic has been great in preserving that and avoiding a lot of food from being thrown away. Now, unfortunately, how do you show that in a marketing campaign or an advertising campaign? I mean, do you show a full of wasted food and then one that's wrapped in plastic? It's kind of a hard thing to show, but that's a big emphasis too. Also in the medical area, I mean, the last year, I mean, so many companies were making the N95 masks. A lot of medical masks have polypropylene fibers in them. Actually, 3M is one of the big companies that made those medical masks. I've done stories on that. The 3M mask has the schematics for it. There are 6 major parts to that mask. 5 of those parts involve plastic. So that's a huge thing. So you couldn't have this mask that was saving all these lives without, those 5 plastic components in it. You had face shields. You had the dividers that were, put up at places that stayed open. And those were, polycarbonate or any other material you can get your hands on to make clear plastic sheet out of.
Right.
These also were things that kept people safe and saved lives. And unfortunately, it took the pandemic to show a lot of that. But even elsewhere in the medical area, I mean, there's so much plastic used in like IV bags, tubing. I mean, all those. I mean, years ago, those were glass bottles that had that medicine that was in there. Now, I mean, think of the spoilage and the breakage that was used there, not to mention, plastic, parts that are used in surgeries, whether it's surgical equipment, prosthetics, all this sort of thing. It's just an amazing impact. So I think focusing on that really needs to be a positive.
Yeah, I would love to see that. I've commented that before, that I would love to see more national media stories talking about the positive impact that plastics and U.S. manufacturing had and as a whole in the last year. I feel like that's the underdog story that wasn't told at all, is how essential manufacturing in the United States is, for one, and take that a step further, the plastic side of things, because it keeps getting this black mark for, I joke about it killing the sea turtles, but it's more than just plastic straws and whatever else. It's all those medical parts that you were talking about, all of those mask components, all of the PPP or PPE and all the other things that made this last year work.
Oh, they were big stories. My favorite story, I wrote about this and actually, interviewed some of these guys. The Braskem, this is a materials company, they had 2 polypropylene plants, one in Pennsylvania, one in West Virginia. Their guys worked 28-day shifts. 28-hour shifts. These guys lived at these 2 plants for 28 days apart from their families, because there was a risk of people going back and forth because of COVID spread. And they wanted to keep these plants running because they made the polypropylene that was used in the polypropylene fibers that was in the masks. So, I mean, if you can imagine staying at your office for 28 days, I mean, that's what these guys did. And I mean, it was a great sacrifice and a wonderful thing that they were able to accomplish.
And again, I think it's great that Plastics News is carrying that. But I think those are those kinds of stories that I wish the mainstream media, the larger networks, would actually talk about and share, because those are things that need recognition. Those are things that people need to hear about. I keep talking and trying to get somebody to help me with the idea of, when everything first started happening and there weren't tests and there weren't this and there weren't that. Well, there's a lot that goes into making that. You have to understand what the beast is, right? And then you have to engineer and develop something that is going to test for it or fix it or whatever that's going to be. And then you have to build the mold. Then you have to source the material. Then you have to build it. Then you have to test it. Then you got to ship it out. And people expected that to happen in a week to 2 weeks time. And it's just completely unrealistic. Don Lopez on, and he says the Brascom story was national news. I guess I missed it.
Well, Don's my boss and a good friend, so I'm not going to argue with him. So no, he's right. The Brascom story did get picked up nationally at a lot of locations, but I know what you mean. It seems like it's few and far between, unfortunately. I think also the industry still has to confront the issue of plastic waste a lot of times from single-use containers, and unfortunately, or bottles. And unfortunately, a lot of this is not really recycled, and I think that's been a big part of the image problem. I just wrote a column last week. I participated in a cleanup in the town in Ohio where I live, and we cleaned up some highway ramps as part of like the Keep America Beautiful program. And 3/4 of what we picked up was plastic.
Yeah.
I mean, we filled 25 garbage bags in a couple hours, and a lot of it was planned. It was unfortunate. Like, I had never done this before with the group. I didn't know what to expect. I figured there would be some plastic, but a lot of it, and there too, I mean, is that because, plastic has been successful in replacing other materials? Probably. But, and then you get to an issue of whose responsibility is that. I mean, I think the industry does need to be doing more in that area, because really it's kind of a negative ad for the plastics industry.
Right.
When you see that, and 20 years ago, maybe there would have been the same amount of trash, just less of it would have been plastic. So again, I don't know what the solution to that is, but I think that's something else that the industry is grappling with.
I think one of the solutions for it is people need to stop being slobs and find the proper receptacle to throw their stuff away in, not just throw it on the ground. I mean, that's just human nature. Like, we gotta start taking care of things and not trashing things that aren't ours.
Right.
That just goes without saying. I mean, we would go on scouting hikes with my son, and you wouldn't believe all the garbage that's in the woods. When listen, just put it in your pocket and take it with you out of here. That's it. You don't own the woods. You don't own the street. Don't throw the stuff on the ground. Take it and throw it in the proper place. I think there are some recycling bins. There are some garbage cans. Do we need more of that? I don't know, but I think when you're talking about like Keep America Beautiful and like the cleanups and everything, come on, people, just throw the stuff away. Like,
yeah. Well, that's, unfortunately that lesson's been a hard time of coming, and maybe, more easily available recycling containers that like you said, maybe that's one solution to it.
I know Tina Richter from Ray Rich Plastics is listening, and she's enjoying the conversation, and she says it fits right in with a new additive she's making for recycling all plastics or all materials. So that's something to watch out for. I know I was in California, and I was talking with her, and she was telling me about some awesome technology that she's working on, and she's trying to change the world. And it's in a good way. So I think that, like you said, sustainability, recycling, I really do think people want to do more. I just don't think they know how. I think that happens a lot of times, whether it's organizations where people are in organizations and you think, why won't anybody get involved? Well, they don't realize that there's necessarily a problem, or they don't know how, or it's too overwhelming. And you got one side that's just yelling at you saying you're bad, and then nobody's coming up with that solution to make a difference. They're just saying, do something better. Well, what does that look like? We need people to help us figure that out in a positive way, to encourage us to do it the right way, so that we can make that positive impact.
Right. And I think it would be good too if the different levels of the industry somehow would find ways to work together on that, whether it's the materials side, the machinery side, the processing side, whether that's injection molding, blow molding. I think sometimes, unfortunately, it seems like these things are happening separately of each other, and maybe they could accomplish more if they were all heading in the same direction at the same time.
Maybe we have to have people like when all the dairy organizations got together and they created Got Milk. Everybody's got to come together. Yep. We need Tony from Plastics, the Plastics Association, to come to get all the plastics companies together and say, listen, we're putting together a campaign. Who's in? And do something that is a PSA to people on how they can help and contribute, and what we as an industry want to do and how we want to make a difference, but we need people to help us to do it.
Right, and I think your example with the dairy industry was a good one, where it's sort of speaking with one voice instead of people saying different things at different times. I mean, there is the interest from these large consumer brands, companies in using recycled material. It's just been a challenge in getting it to that level. Um, to that level, unfortunately, the cleanup that I took part in, the state of Ohio was picking up the bags that we filled, but they were not able to recycle. That they didn't have enough staff to do sorting and separating. So it's great that we picked up 25 bags of trash from these highway ramps, but that it was going to end up going in a landfill.
Right.
And even then, there aren't markets for a lot of these products. I mean, we put a lot of stuff in our recycling bin in the town where I live, and the hauler comes. But I mean, if it's not some of the majorly used recycled plastics like PET or high density polyethylene, unfortunately, a lot of that, doesn't really get recycled. And that even comes to things like, EPS foam, polystyrene foam blocks. I mean, that can be recycled, but there's not really a huge market for it, so it doesn't always happen. I think the important thing is, and again, these are problems that you and I are not going to solve today.
No.
Unfortunately, maybe in another hour we do it, but not in the time we have here. But I think that there is interest on the consumer side for this, and it's just a matter of the pricing of the products to be worked out, and things to be heading in that direction, and maybe that's a generational change. Maybe, when there's people asking for vegetarian options at the restaurant, they'll be asking for recycled content, options if they're shopping at, Target or Home Depot or wherever. And maybe that's something the industry can provide.
Yeah, I think we're going in the right direction. I just think we have to be able to tell people how they can help and what they can do and what that looks like. I generally think more people than not are interested in helping and making a difference. It's just they don't know how to. And,
right. I think your company was making a difference by being named to our best places to work list twice, Tony. So it's a great accomplishment for your company. So congratulations on that.
Well, thank you for that. We will be back at some point. Sadly, we decided to make sure that, kind of to prove that we're a good place to work, we decided that we were going to put our funds back into our people instead of applying again.
Well, I think the important thing too is that you have the wrestling belt still in effect. So if
we do.
Now that again, that's given to an exceptional employee every month, or what's the award there? Or?
Yeah, we have our most valuable employee, most valuable team member that goes out once a month. It is a heavyweight championship belt.
It's very impressive looking. I mean, it's a full-fledged, wrestling belt.
Yeah, and then we do it kind of like the Stanley Cup, where your name and the month gets engraved on there, and then it's full now, so we have to order new plates, and then we're going to retire that belt up in the conference room, and then start a new one so that we can continue to keep track of who that was, and they have a permanent recognition for being awesome. It's something that we're really happy about. We pride ourselves on the people that work here. We know that we can't do anything without our team. I personally don't know how to do anything here. I can't polish. I can't fix a mold. I can't weld. I can't engrave. I can't do any of it. I am everybody's biggest cheerleader, and that's my job. And so I value everybody here so much, because without them, I'm useless. My father taught me very early to take care of people. That this is our family. This is the people that we spend all day with, and we appreciate everybody here. We appreciate the customers that we work with. It's why gratitude and relationships are the first two core values on our values. So it's good. We like trying to make a difference for people, and hopefully we'll be back in the best places to work soon. Moving up the list.
If there's a tie for the belt, does actual wrestling take place to determine the winner? Is that kind of tiebreaker?
We haven't had that yet. It would be interesting. With COVID, there was no touching.
Right. Sorry, we have a strict no wrestling policy because of COVID. But if things are opening up,
why not? It might be fun. I mean, that's a good viral video we could put out there.
Arm wrestling, thumb wrestling, if not full-fledged, off the top rope wrestling. I mean, it's an opportunity for you there.
I think it might be fun. We actually had a guy here. This is way off topic, but he was convinced that he could beat a black bear in a fight.
Wow.
Yeah, I wanted to find a black bear so bad, but I
Yeah.
couldn't. He also said that there was this sounds terrible, but I'm going to say it anyways because I disagree with him. He said there wasn't a woman on the planet that he couldn't
Hmm.
fight and win, and I thought,
Ooh, that could
man,
come back on him. Yeah.
I wanted to hire an MMA woman so bad to just come in and like I wanted to build a wrestling ring and everything just for fun, but it never happened. He doesn't work here
Yeah, I
anymore.
think
But
if you just have that guy sign the appropriate waivers, I think that could be done. Really,
I think it would be great. I would love it. I would be very
Yeah.
entertained by it. But so we're coming up to an hour. That's pretty much our cutoff. We always end our show with a prayer. I think that prayer is one of the most optimistic, positive things that you can do. And I think it's incredibly important. So if anybody has any prayer requests, go ahead and put them in the chat and we will get those. Frank, do you have any prayer requests before we let you go?
I would just ask for my friends and family and their ongoing health and happiness.
Don has prayers for Andy Kaufman.
I think that's a wrestling reference.
Okay. I know that, but I also know the comedy side. Andy Kaufman is like the last person I would have thought of with wrestling. Like you got a Hulk Hogan, you got all the other, but I know he had that whole wrestling shtick.
And then the wrestling shtick part of it was he had a lot of successful wrestling matches, but they were all against women.
Yes. Oh, well,
so
good.
He had never wrestled a man. So it's, could
and
be,
again,
you could have the first ever Andy Kaufman Memorial Alliance wrestling tournament.
And again, nowadays, that's not so weird. You can't laugh about it anymore. It's
would
just
be a definite branding opportunity for you.
Yeah. I don't know if that's the one I want though. we take branding pretty seriously, and I don't know if that's the one I want, but before we get to the end, I just want to say thank you for coming on and for all that you guys do as a magazine, as an entity. If people have stories or information that they want to share, how can they get a hold of you and what should they do?
Plasticsnews.com is our website. The names and contact information for all of our staff members are there. So that's probably the best place to have it there. Me doing resin pricing and us tracking so many materials, my name and contact information is on there about 300 times. So that's one of the benefits or drawbacks of that area. But all of our contact information is on the website, which is plasticsnews.com.
Yeah, you're not a difficult person to find contact information for if people are looking.
Absolutely, and with resin pricing, it's like you're the guy, kind of thing, and it's good though. I mean, I think it's a topic that everybody's interested in, but people always kind of have challenges in finding the right information. Unfortunately, plastics are not priced like other commodities. There are not big futures markets like there are for metals or agricultural products. So a lot of times they rely on sources like Plastics News or some of the other indexes that are out there. So that's just another service we provide for the industry.
Well, thank you for that service as well. You guys always seem to be having your hand in something to further the industry, and it's great. It's great to see. I love getting the magazine every week, pamphlet, newsletter, newspaper. I don't know what you would call it. It's a larger format. But
whatever it is, please continue to do so.
I will definitely do that. All right, I'm going to pray for us, and then I'm going to let you go because I value your time and everything else. So, Heavenly Father, thank you for today. Thank you for this opportunity to talk with Frank and everything he has to share. Thank you for all the situations that you put us in. We don't always understand them, but we can take hope, take faith in knowing that you are there, and you know the beginning, the middle, and the end, and nothing's going to surprise you. So whatever we're going through is intentional, and you have a plan for it. We pray that you would watch over our friends and our family and the people that are hearing this today or down the line. We just pray for our country and the people around the world, that we would be through this pandemic and these issues, and we could learn from it and grow from it, and we can get better. And that through all of it, you would be given all of the glory and all the praise. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Frank, thank you. I'm proud of myself. I didn't call you Phil Esposito once. And it was like for a week leading up to this, that's all I kept saying. It was Phil.
Yes.
And
when I talk to people in New England, I still get that.
Yeah.
And you for Chicago area people, Tony was a goalie for the Blackhawks for
Yes, he
many
was.
years. So I get that one a lot. So Phil, and early on, I got a lot of Phil, and I'm sure guys got off the phone and said, "Honey, I talked to Phil Esposito today. He's a great guy," and just it gave a lot of people memories from that. So well done.
Well, I don't know any of those other Espositos, so you are officially my favorite Esposito because it's the best conversation I've ever had with an Esposito.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
No, thank you for everything you do. I appreciate you coming on. And if there's anything that we can ever do to help you, I'd be happy to do that. So I hope that we can stay in contact and maybe do this again down the line and see how else we can participate with plastics news and everything else, and hopefully be back at the executive forum at the end of the year.
Sounds good.
Thank you, my friend. Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Everybody, thank you once again for listening to the Manufacturing Alliance podcast, for listening, for watching, for participating. It's great talking to Frank, hearing his input on what's going on in the industry, in the world, in the country, what he's seeing. And we want to hear from you. So if you'd like to be part of the show, if you have a story or a topic that you'd like us to cover, send me an email at tony@alliancelasersales.com. And we'll be happy to connect with you and figure out a time that we can get you on the show and just share some stuff. I hope that everybody got something out of it. And I hope that you pass this on to one or two people. And if you don't like it, do me a favor and tell me. Tell me how we can improve. We believe in continuous improvement. We want to get this to be better, and we want it to serve a purpose, whether that's bringing people a smile to their face in a difficult day or sharing some information about what's going on in the industry. We want to make our show better, and we want to do it for you. So if you have any comments, any feedbacks, any suggestions, please don't hesitate to send that over. We will read it. We may do it. We may not. But until then, on behalf of myself, Alliance Specialties and Laser Sales, and Frank, take care and God bless.